I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome to another one of our old school podcasts. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my buddy John Salka, and your chiefness, John. With everything going on, and with all our different shows, and we faced the whole coronavirus thing a little while back. It's still kind of going on. How are you guys? I mean, let's talk training, I guess. How are you guys? How are you making it? Are you guys doing a lot of people are doing the online stuff and so on and so forth. I guess two things, John. First with the Valley Department, where you're chief, how are you guys accomplishing training needs right now? And for some of the career departments, I've got a couple of thoughts there. What are you guys doing at South Blooming Grove?
Well, actually, we're doing nothing. I must admit, we're not happy about it, but we have a small crew, and as a result of the virus precautions, we are they're not sending us to a lot of the medical runs because we basically don't have EMTs. We get a lot of basic first aid people, but so we're not really going on a lot of EMS runs, and then we're going on a few fire calls now and then, smoke and this and that. Outside of that, though, we have closed the firehouse. The firehouse is not open, and that's something a volunteer fire department can do. We closed the firehouse. The firehouse is closed. I mean, it's certainly accessible. Everybody's key still works. You can go in if you want to, but we don't want groups of people in there. We really don't even want 2 people in there. I said, there's no reason for anybody to be exposed to anybody else. A lot of the folks that volunteer there have worked or still do work somewhere else. And so along with closing the firehouse to all social occasions and everything else, we also are not having our Wednesday night drills and our rig checks. We're still doing the rig check, and the company officers have figured that out, and they have each taken an apparatus, and they go down there at one point during Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Normally it was Wednesday night, but they try and just have one of them in the building at a time checking a rig. They'll check one rig and then send an email out that the rig was checked and everything was good. If it needs something like fuel or whatever, then we work that out. But basically, training has gone by the wayside right now, and I don't like to say that, but realistically speaking, in a small volunteer department with just a handful of people that are active and with the restrictions from the coronavirus, we're doing nothing right now other than, when we go on a run, we come back, we might talk about something very briefly, all standing outside the firehouse, 6 feet up away from each other and all that. It's very debilitating. All these precautions are very debilitating to running training. So we just hung it up for now, and we're gonna see how long it goes.
Well, and everything makes sense now with the coronavirus and trying to distance yourself. And if we're going to tell people to practice social distancing, then we need to be doing ourselves. Obviously for the shift guys, when you're in a firehouse, there's ways to accomplish that. But I mean, you're in a firehouse, and it comes down to also, a big part of what they've been saying is, John, all along is, number one, the whole good hygiene thing, keeping yourself clean, washing your hands, wearing masks when you're out in the public. Obviously, we've already talked about it, and a couple other times during this about, what do you do and how do you respond to calls and so on and so forth. But, and for I know a lot of volunteer departments have had to do the same thing, John, where they've just had to say, look, we just can't have the guys and gals up at the firehouse right now, hanging out and all that. And God, it's so hard, especially for a volley who's into it, that loves hanging out at the firehouse. It's such a difficult time for everybody when you think about it. But all right, so that being said, that some places have had to place those restrictions, and understandably so with everything going on. John, there's so much out there. We've talked about this before because let's talk about do you train? I guess that should be our topic. There you go. Do you train? You know, there's so many different avenues, I guess it is, buddy. You know, I mean, we've talked about Fire Engineering's video streaming library, which is absolutely freaking incredible. And I'm not trying to do a promo for it. I mean, if I was a training officer, again, John, you know, I was the one that used to, you know, and I've said this before, you know, back when we had VHS tapes, you know, it was always, okay, who's got the tape? Or, you know, I used to be one of those guys that made copies of them until I found out the FBI frowned on that, you know, I mean, and then, you know, then you go to DVDs and, you know, it's like your DVDs at home, you open up the case and where's disc number 2? Well, it's in the Little Mermaid box or something. And you try sharing that with multiple stations or buy multiple copies. So a while back, Fire Engineering even came up with the video streaming library, which I know you're familiar with. Some of our listeners may not be, but you know, for a couple $100, I think. I mean, if you use my name, if you're listening to this podcast, shoot me an email, chieflasky@gmail.com, and I'll send you information. I pushed this, buddy. You remember this for years. I wanted a Netflix for firefighters, where you could just go, you know, and not just access John Salka's videos or Rick Lasky's videos, but you can go to this video streaming library you subscribe to, and you access hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos. And we've done, you know, Champ's got some basic, Mike Champo's got some back to basics on there. I've got
the inventory just on this single topic of this video library, right? The inventory is unbelievable. The presenters, the trainers are unbelievable. Most of them, or a great many of them, well-known trainers that you see on the stages at all the big shows around the country, and then a whole host of other folks that are excellent instructors too. That are I don't want to say not as well known, but the point is the inventory there is gigantic, from tactics to enforceable entry and leadership and, you know, engine work and truck work, and you could watch a different one every night for a couple of years.
Oh, and John, what's nice is it's just like Netflix, where you can stop, resume, play it again, restart, watch it hundreds of times. And it's a yearly subscription. You can do an individual one, which is pretty cheap for yourself. I have it. I watch videos when I'm on the airplanes, when I'm flying, or in my hotel room. And then for the career side, you know, I mean, you've got for your, you know, tons and tons of videos to watch while you're on shift, or for your volunteer, you know, your training night or whatever. Regardless, like I said, whether you're a volunteer, career, firefighter, doesn't matter. We've said it before. A firefighter is a firefighter. But you just renew your subscription every year, and whether that's the personal one, like I mentioned, or the department one. And the department one comes down if you use my name as the discount, because we pushed this long enough, and it was a dream come true for me to have that available out there. I subscribed to our John for when I was interim chief in Trophy Club. You know, and anything new, like when one of our videos came out, when it was new, 5-alarm leadership, it was right away posted, new release by Chief John Salka, Chief Rick Lasky. And anyway, not to go too long on this, that's another option. If you want any information on it, email me and I'll send you the information. But it's a phenomenal program for a pretty cheap subscription. And you as long as you have the internet, you can. And I was going to say, John, one of my buddies, a volunteer chief up outside Calgary, Canada, and he's got like 40 members. And he says, well, how many users do I get with the department subscription? I said, well, initially you get 5. But if you need more like people, more like license, if you will, whatever it is, it's not like a 150, 250 Microsoft or whatever license. They're $5 a piece. And you know what he did? He goes, well, I've got 40 members, so I'm just going to buy the other 35 each, $5 each. He goes, because I have guys that travel in the hotels. And so he just paid, he paid to have all his guys on it. So anyway, there's that. Golly, there's so many apps. And now, right now, John, with this virus going on, have you seen how many places they're doing actually free online training? There's some of our groups of guys that are saying, you know, let's give back right now. And you can join us. You know, they're doing online, or they're doing groups where you can join in. And some of them are saying, I promise you, my word.
The one point I wanted to make about video training, whether it's the current video training, whether there's something special going on because of the condition that's going on right now, or whether it's just looking at the fire engineering tapes, videos rather. The one thing I want to warn people, and I would imagine everybody that's listening probably already knows this, but don't get caught up in the in the TV, in the recording, in the video world, and never get out there and do it. Some people start watching videos every week and checking them off, and okay, we did forcible entry, or we did K-tool. All right, we're going to do aerial ladder operations now, and then you end up being a guy that's seen 100 tapes, and you can't find a Halligan on the apparatus because you've never been down there yet. So my point, and I'm sure you would agree with me, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners would agree as well. Any good training that you find anywhere, always, whether it's reading, whether it's a magazine, a monthly magazine, whether it's you go to a seminar and you sit down and listen to Rick Lasky talk for 3 hours about pride and ownership, whether it's a fire engineering, video library, whatever it is, you must always add a realistic element to that. You must always marry that up to going out and doing whatever it was you saw or you were introduced to or it was explained to you on that video or at that class. Because some people take notes, some people listen well, some people learn a lot of stuff, but you always have to actually start touching the stuff and working and using the tools and starting the saw and climbing a ladder. It's a whole different set of skills. The class and the video are going to give you the mental tools, but you got to get out there and actually do it as well.
I agree with you 100%. We've said that before. We've talked about that before in classes and our shows about, there's a lot of Facebook, we used to call it social media, the big Facebook firefighters or video firefighters. And we talk about how great YouTube is as a learning tool, but it should be just that, right? It should be a tool where, I like the guys that watch a video, John, and then they go out and do it. They're like, it's kind of like instructor one, how you learn best by seeing while explaining, seeing while doing, putting your hands on stuff, right? The old instructor one class.
Obviously, without mandating or, making every single step exactly how we say it should be. That certainly is the best. To start a training session inside in the firehouse or in the classroom, view a half an hour video about forcible entry, and then, okay, guys, get your stuff and let's meet outside, and then pick up the tools the same evening, the same session, the same afternoon, and go to the forcible entry simulator or whatever it is you're going to do and actually practice the skill that you just viewed or just listened to on the television. Absolutely.
Exactly. And like I said, not to belabor, but that's like when we learned, like I said, instructor a long time ago by, hey, let's explain this, and maybe show a video clip or you do a quick PowerPoint presentation to accent what you're doing because we don't want death by PowerPoint, but you know what I'm saying? Here you go. Okay, guys, let's go back out and let's do. I know some guys that have done that with hose loads for new firefighters. They've said, look, this is, there's a video on how to rebed this hose, and then they go out and they do it over and over again. And then it's available on the department computers or even if they post it on their access for their volleys or their career guys down, where another volunteer or another career guy can go on their phone even and watch a real quick snippet. Oh, okay, crap, that's how I'm supposed to do that. Run back out there and fix the fold or fix the cross late.
And what's good about that? That brings us to not to the next, but to another topic, very, very related, is training props and the actual training session. So to say that you're going to watch a forcible entry video, one of the old Tom Brennan ones, right? Tom Brennan's were great. Watch a forcible entry video. Okay, guys, let's go out to the apparatus floor now. So what are you going to do out there besides pick up a tool? Maybe you go to a couple of doors between the apparatus floor and the closet, between the apparatus floor and the meeting room. Maybe you can stand there and just physically show how the fork would go in. It would go in right about here. And how would you strike it? Even though obviously you're not going to force these doors. These are the firehouse doors. So it brings me to the topic of training props and training equipment. And it's hard for me to believe that there are places that don't have training props available to them. You just mentioned hose. I know a couple of places that built a hose bed training prop with some of the old busted up hose that's got holes in it. They pack it in there. They can be stretching hose, pulling hose, packing hose. They get a run. They just drop it, get on the rig, and drive away. They're not pulling the hose off the rig. So, a forcible entry door, a little roof cutting panel, or something as simple as a couple of pallets. You see some pallets laying on the side of the road or at a factory. You ask them if you can take them. Sure. There's your little roof cutting, prop for the next drill night or for the next shift that you work. So, training is good and hands-on training is good, but you got to put some time and effort into hands-on to make it actual, to make it realistic.
Well, exactly. So So I guess what we've been talking about is just a couple ideas. First off, on how to get past being house grounded, under house arrest with the coronavirus going on right now, and how to get some training to your people. And you know, most good firefighters again are going to figure that stuff out, John, with everything. Like I said, you got firehouse.com, fireengineering.com, you got Firefighter Nation. There are so many. Hell, Fire Engineering's training group, the training, I mean, you can go to that. That's free. People share PowerPoints. They share videos. We talked about YouTube and all those different things. And then, like you said, having the props, whether it's a ventilation prop, whether it's a forced entry door, you know, an SCBA maze. I mean, there's so many different things. And, you know, and again, there you go, John. You can go to YouTube. There are YouTube videos on how to build an SCBA maze, how to build a roof ventilation prop, how to, you know, there's videos out there that guys are sharing the information on props and things. So now we've taken, let's say we talked briefly about taking the classroom portion, maybe video instruction portion, maybe some of the chat room portions and stuff like that, the online stuff. We talked about in the training room at our Valley House or at our career place. Then we go out on the floor, out back, or to our training field, whatever you have, out back to the firehouse. How we had a burglar bar prop on the back of our firehouse to be able to cut simulated bars with rebar and stuff. Whatever it is you go out and do, you've got that. But I guess what I want to ask you, John, is, and this is different, I know, between career and volunteer departments. And again, we're both volunteer and career firefighters, and a firefighter's a firefighter. We love them both, but there are some differences in requirements. You being a volunteer chief, let me just ask you, South Blooming Grove is a great fire department. I've been there. It's a great firehouse. I appreciate them housing my future antique ladder truck. You know, I appreciate you housing it there. But what are some of the requirements, I guess? Because that comes up a lot about, right, about, you know, what do we require career guys versus volunteer guys? And you know, and I know I used to teach a class on it, but, you know, what's realistic and what's not, and so on and so forth. I know it goes state by state, but what do you guys do in South Blooming Grove requirement-wise for your volunteers?
Well, in New York State, to be an interior structural firefighter, you have to take firefighter 1. Recently, maybe it wasn't so recently, but in the past year or so, I think they changed it again. The folks that write the books and design the classes like changing titles all the time. Used to be essentials when I used to teach it years ago. Then it became firefighter 1. And I know we were doing essentials when others had firefighter 1 in other states. A little bit of a problem, the fact that every state has their own standards, because a lot of them don't jive. They don't match up with each other, you know. Well,
you guys, I mean, let me interrupt. You guys actually, I mean, require firefighter 1. There's a lot of states, John, and I'll just say specifically for their volunteers that have no requirements. And I won't say that's tragic. I'm just saying, wow, you know, I mean, you know, nowadays with so many shared resources, right, with so many states that actually say, here, take our Firefighter 1 program. Here's everything you need to run your own Firefighter 1 program, except the people. You know what I'm saying? The hardest part is always the structure, right? The objectives and lesson plans and testing documents and, you know, stuff that you could take as your state and then roll it into your fire departments and say, look, whether it's mandatory or not, here it is. So there's really no longer the excuse that it's too hard to make it happen because we don't have the resources, because people share their shit all the time. So you guys actually have it pretty cool that you already have to be a firefighter 1 to be a volunteer. I'm sorry, go ahead, buddy.
Well, you have to do firefighter 1 to be an interior.
Right.
We have people that join that are not going to be interior firefighters. They're physically not fit, but they want to come around and they want to help. They do want to be a member. And they can be a member. They can be an exterior. And New York State actually has an exterior firefighter class. If you're not going to be interior firefighter, they have an exterior firefighter class that you can take, and it gives you the skills and stuff that you need to be operating outside the building. You know,
think about that. How valuable is that? Because, you know, a lot of places, you know, we've said this before. There's a lot of places that, well, you know, you're up there in age now, and you can't really wear an air pack. So here's your plaque. And thanks for all your years. I'm like, wait. You don't mean you can't use him or her as a safety officer to change bottles, to some guys let them do, like they throw ladders or they do, as long as they're not inside, you know, filling bottles, pumping, driving, running tanker shuttles. I mean, oh my God, you've got these invaluable resources out there, and your members, don't push them out the door just because they can't go inside. So I'm, again, another hats off to you guys in your state, the New York State, for recognizing the importance of having people that can still come and volunteer. Hell, right? We're talking about recruitment retention problems all over the fire service, and there's some places they run you out of the fire service because you can't go inside anymore. Instead of saying, well, we're just going to shift your responsibilities to an exterior firefighter. I think that's a great idea, buddy.
And if you think about it, and it's not just volunteer, but I think it applies obviously way more to volunteers. The typical volunteer fire department, is not 48 engine in the Bronx doing 6,000 runs of structural fires every week. They're doing a lot of stuff. They're doing a lot of work that you have to be an interior firefighter for, but they're also doing a lot of work that you don't. Every MVA out on the highway, you don't have to be an interior structural firefighter to do that. Every extrication call, a lot of monitoring calls where, there's a gas leak, it smells inside, it smells outside. Somebody, there's all these different operations that we get involved in, emergencies and things of that nature, medical calls that you don't need to be an interior structural firefighter. So the fact that, the state of New York, at least, I don't know who else has it, recognizes that as a valuable person in the fire department, and it opens up a whole group of people that might not otherwise volunteer, and you can staff a rig with them. And now I realize you can't put a fire out with them. I mean, you can't go in and put a fire out with them. Even places that are rural that have a lot of barns or vacant buildings or outside fires or even brush fires, you have a lot of people that can do a lot of jobs for you, even if they're not interior structural firefighters. So again, it's just another one of the training options that you have that you should definitely be thinking about.
Well, and I know some states have like 20-hour requirements. I've seen some for volunteers where it's like 10 hours of classroom, 10 hours of hands-on, which, to a lot of other people, they may go, oh my God, that's ridiculous. But, and I'll just say it, John, what is it? Probably 80%, give or take, are still volunteer departments out of the almost 40,000 fire departments in the United States alone, let alone our brothers and sisters up in Canada, So let me, just answer me this. How many drill nights does South Blooming Grove host a month?
Well, we have a drill every Wednesday night. So it's every single Wednesday night, the firehouse is open, the parking lot's full, the doors are open, the rigs are running, the lights are on, they're checking, obviously everything mechanical on all the rigs. They check that it's full of fuel, full of water, that the thing starts up, that all the lights are working and rotating, et cetera, et cetera. All the SCBA are checked, any bottles that are down or have been used are refilled, and things are washed and cleaned. It's a very busy evening. And then when they get done with that work, then they jump into a drill or a training session with, inside, outside, whatever it might be.
Exactly. So you've got that. So you have the capability of 4 or 5 nights of training, depending on weeks, a month, if you make every drill. If you don't, and I guess where I'm going with this, there's some departments, some places where 1 week is just their meeting, their monthly meeting, the other weeks are their weekly training, and you say you have to make half of that. So realistically, if you added up how many hours a year, and I think it is a genuine recruitment and retention issue when you have volunteers that have full-time careers, sometimes 2 jobs, family commitments like the rest of us, and they're still trying to make their meetings at their night. So, I think it's hard to place don't get me wrong, how much we both love training, how training is the backbone behind everything, but I think it's a delicate line you have to walk, that you don't push people out. I guess where I'm going with this, you've seen this, where great career guys, get involved with their local volunteer department. Okay. And when they maybe make lieutenant or captain or training officer or chief, and they start writing training requirements for their volunteers that we all get excited about, but I don't think they're realistic on the volunteer side, John, because, and again, we both love we're very partial and very much love our volunteers. I don't think you can place the same, you can't place the same requirements time-wise.
No, and you really don't have to, because, even if you just look at the very rough numbers, if a volunteer firefighter in a small company made 2 drills a month, every other one, he makes every other one, 2 times 12, right? That's 24. That's 24 sessions that he made out of whatever they had for the year. And each one is at least 2 hours. So let's just make it 2 hours. So that's 24 times 2. That's practically 50 hours of training right there. There's a lot of places that have, for career people, 100 hours a year. And here's 50 right off the bat for a young or an older or whatever it is, a busy volunteer firefighter who only makes half the drills. He's going to make almost 50 hours a year. Never mind runs and stuff like that. So,
well, and for
I think that's a decent amount. I think that's an acceptable number.
Yeah, and for the longest time, on the career side, ISO, which is important to a lot of people, that's your insurance rating for your businesses and your citizens out there. They would try to mirror what the NFPA required, which for a long time was 240 hours, and you can actually look up the professional qualification for firefighter. It used to be like 1001 or whatever it was. And you could see all the different topics. They actually want you to do a couple pub ed talks, which are like firehouse tours, and then so much training hose and ladders and all the different topics and stuff. Because there's got to be something out there, right? There's got to be something out there as kind of a standard, as a guideline, if you will. And that's what they are. But I guess it comes down to, we've said this before. I think a lot of our company officers, great men and women, but sometimes maybe we get a little complacent or lazy and we don't document. It's one thing to, you do all your training that maybe the training division sends out to, this is what we want you to cover this month. And then Captain Salka goes out with 48 engine and he does training on top of that, or they stop and they walk through a building that's under renovation or a building that's under construction, or PT, or they go out back and they're playing with a new prop. And I think a lot of our guys and gals, John, I think very innocently forget to record those training events. And it's actually gypping our people, gypping our men and women out of hours. I used to say, look, if you stop by and you're walking through that house in this subdivision and you're looking at the pipe chases and the floor or whatever, what I'm saying, how it's put together before they button it up with the sheetrock, or you're walking through that building's being renovated, or you went out back and you looked at Seth Taylor put together a new forcible entry door prop, and how many times you've seen that, or or maybe you're making rounds as a BC and you tell your lieutenants, hey, make sure you put this down. Oh crap, or you know what I'm saying? I think we forget, and I don't want to say out of laziness. I know there's people out there lazy, but the majority of the fire service is not. I think They just forget to jot this stuff down. And I think once you start doing that, John, you start to see the training hours. I'm not talking fabricated stuff. I'm talking you start to see the training hours kind of grow in numbers just because lieutenants and captains are actually putting down what they did with their guys. And there's nothing wrong with it, right?
I'll tell you another thing that we do at Sapelman Grove, and lots of places do it. We have a whole separate list of training requirements for company officers. So if a young firefighter's on the company for 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, and he's thinking, gee, lieutenant spot's opening up, a guy just retired and moved to Florida, and there's an opening now, and I think I'm going to get nominated. It's elections. I'm not a fan of elections for officer selection, but it is. But to soften it, to give it some validity, years ago, got to be almost 20 years ago now, they added training requirements. So if you want to be an engine lieutenant in Sapelman Grove Fire Department, you've got to have a company officer, fire officer 1. On top of your stuff that you already have as a firefighter, you have to have fire officer 1, you have to have engine operations, and there's a third one. And if you want to be a truck officer, you have to have the same thing. Fire officer 1, truck company operations, and like emergency vehicle operations. So we have a whole little list. There's only 2 or 3 programs per rank. And if you want to make captain, then you got to get into the ICS stuff, and it changes over the years as requirements change and as standards change. We change it a little bit. But the point is, as you go up through the ranks, you got to continue to train and get some more training before you're even eligible to run for the office, which is there's a good motivator right there.
Well, so let me ask this, how do you answer, you've seen the posts where once, somebody, I think some of this might be just people kind of either inexperienced or lacking some of the research when they go, all these requirements, for volunteers or even career guys, it's getting so hard where we're running people out the door or we can't meet the requirements and all that stuff. And there are, there's so much hazmat wise and, maybe rescue wise and structure stuff, but we already said it kind of varies from state to state, and we've kind of talked about this already, but let me get my John Salka answer here. What do you say to those guys that say, what do I do? There's too many requirements, or, we can't train us to train. We were talking about this earlier. I guess my question is, because you're pretty open about things. What do you say to them when they tell you they're having a hard time meet requirements or running people out the door or whatever.
Right. You know, in a volunteer fire department, obviously not the problem, but the unique situation is nobody's getting paid there. Nobody's bringing a check home. Nobody's been able to get anything for their family. It's a public service thing, right? It's a community service. So having said that, people that are there want to be involved. They're there because they want to serve and they want to, you know, do the right thing. And you can't make it too hard. Now, if the state or the county or even the department has requirements that make it hard, obviously there's got to be some wiggle room in there. Any kind of rule you have. You go to the post office. You're having trouble. You tell them, I want to see the manager. I want to see the boss. They bring the boss out. You go to the motor vehicle department, and the woman behind the counter that's giving you a hard time. You say, you know what? I want to see a supervisor right now. There's always somebody in any kind of business that can type in a couple of numbers and give you an exemption, give you, you know, get you off light on something. So the point is, I think the same thing is true in a fire department. It depends on people's personal situation, what they're doing, if they have a positive attitude, if they're really trying. And I've had plenty of guys that didn't quite have the right requirements to run for officer. Now, nobody else was running against them that had the right ones. So we let them run anyway. We told them, listen, between now and next year, you got to go and get that class, get it under your belt. And then next year when you run, you'll have it legit and there'll be no problem. And most of them do that. So sometimes you got to work with folks, especially in the volunteer fire service. You got to give them a little room. You got to give them a little leeway, give them some extra time. And then, of course, if you know that the guy owns a hardware store in town, he's got 5 or 10 employees, and he's really working hard, and he's opening up another store in the next town. And you don't want to say, well, you want to be a hardware store guy, you want to be a firefighter. I mean, don't do that. If the guy still wants to be a member, sometimes you got to work with him and tell him, hey, listen, you're going to run short on your points for this year. We have a LOSAP, a Length of Service Awards program in New York State where you have to make a certain amount of points for the year. And it works towards giving you a monetary sort of pension system when you get to be 62 years old. Sometimes people run short on that 50 points. Now, that's 50 points for the year. It's really pretty hard to run short on 50 points. But if we get to October, November, and we see a guy is 5 or 6 or 7 short, and we don't think he's going to make it on runs, we tell him, you know what? You need to make up 7 points. I suggest you come down. There's some work needs to be done down in the firehouse. Here's the list of stuff. We're going to put it on the bulletin board. The rig compartment's got to be cleaned. This rig has to be waxed. This closet has to be emptied and refilled back up properly and reorganized. If you do each of those jobs, you get another point. And then so you can help people make their points, just like you can help people get classes under their belt, or you can help people stay involved, even if maybe they ran a little bit short. You got to be able to work with people.
Well, and the same thing goes on the career side too, right? With having, I'll go back to realistic training requirements and allowing your people. We've said it for years. Training has always been one of our favorite parts of the day. Nobody looks forward to go, okay, let's go sit through the mandatory drug awareness class, which we did, whatever we do every year, which is, I understand there's a need for that, but it's not the same as forcing a door or throwing ladders or something like that. But we've said it before, training is the backbone behind every successful fire department, every successful firefighter, knowing your job, the whole muscle memory thing. The more we do it, the better we get, the quicker we get. Speed comes with efficiency. Efficiency comes through training and repetition. Getting out there and doing anything. And I'll just say it, John, selfishly, look at the people we hang with. If you look at the Mike Wilbers and you look at the Scott Thompsons and the Terry McGratts, and you look at Ryan Fetzer, the volunteer chief at Wichita West, and if you look at the different departments, Louisville, FDY, Chicago, you look at the places, you look at the guys we run with, the Mike Dugans and all them. The one thing that I guess really centers around all of us is we love to train. We always have. The guys. Remember, John, we used to bring our guys to FDIC every year. We had 26 instructors between two of us for 200 and sometimes 50, 280 students for hands-on training on Monday and another group on Tuesday. And every one of the guys that taught with us loved doing it. They loved training. They either loved teaching it or they loved going to drills. And I'll, not to embarrass you, but I love the one post I saw at the TEAC's Leadership Development Series. We both taught there with another great training institution, another one selfishly right here in Texas, but people come from all over the world for it. But I remember somebody they took a picture of you. You didn't know they took it. They were sitting like behind you. You were in the front row with your notepad. You'd already taught, you'd already done your lecture. You're in your coat and tie. You're sitting in the front row taking notes at someone else's lecture. And I was, at first I kind of laughed because this guy goes, God, you know, even Chief Salka is sitting in the front row, taking notes, learning. And I laughed because two reasons. I went, well, that's what he does. That's what we do. And then I went, well, you know why? Because not that many, you know, when people are done, and they're, look at, you and I say it, and we're always very complimentary to the chiefs, the chief of departments that show up at some of our training sessions in uniform, John, sit there the whole freaking time when we know how busy they are. But, and I go, some guys right now are going to be screaming at me for saying it, but there's a lot of shit you got to do as a fire chief. And, you know, when you see that and you see fire chiefs that are involved with their people, we've talked about it with the battalion chiefs that make the rounds or show up at drills or actually teach one once in a while. You know, that's the one thing, John, again, not to embarrass you, but when I read that post and I'm like, I kind of laughed. I'm like, well, yeah, that's John. John, he loves training, he loves classes. I wasn't surprised. And then I had to step back and go, because a lot of people don't see that. So if you're one of our listeners and you're one of your lieutenants or captains or a chief or a train chief, whatever, you know, just teaching, just doing drills, just putting the calendar out does not make for a great boss or a great company officer or make for a well-educated, experienced firefighter. It's get down there and doing it.
And
so
you gotta stay current.
there should be.
You gotta stay relevant. You know, you just can't, just because you're a boss now, and you've said it a million times in class, who gets the least training? The farther up the line you go, the least training that's available, right? And
right.
I must admit, when you're the fire chief or a deputy chief or somewhere up the ladder, I know the last thing on your mind is forcible entry or smoke movement. You know what I'm saying? You got a lot of stuff to do. You're an administrative chief. You got a lot of administrating to do. But you still got to stay relevant. You still got to know what's going on down at the bottom end of your organization where they're delivering the service to the people, which our friend Alan Brunacini would remind you all the time. That's what this is all about. It's all about them. It's all about Mrs. Smith. It's all about the customers, the visitors, the workers, the people that are in our community. You know, they're the ones that dial the phone and say, help, I need somebody to come here and help me with something. That's what we got to be ready to do. And that's really what training is all about. Exactly.
And you know, I know we're getting towards the end of our program here for today, but, you know, we've said it for years, and I'll go back to 48 engine in the Bronx with you, never dipping under 6,000 runs a year, going to fires every day. And yet it was a rarity for your guys to not do something for training that day. It was rare. And if it was all those days where you're running nonstop, it was at the top of your list as a captain on next workday. So even the busiest of fire departments still find a way to train or have a tabletop discussion or just something. You come back and you sit down and you talk tactics, or you go out and you do something or whatever, you know. And again, John, I'll just say it. You and I love hanging with people that love training. And we kind of joke about it. We love that clip from that very serious movie, We Were Soldiers, with Mel Gibson. But that point, that movie where he's talking to the new lieutenants and captains, and my friend, you know, Colonel Bruce Crandall, he dips that helicopter, you know, kind of pulls up and then flies away, salutes him and flies away. And that line in there about, you know, where he gets that whole thing is, he goes, I really hope that you love training, because Sergeant Plumley and me, we love it. And I mean, right? I mean, here's a guy that's a colonel, United States Army combat veteran, and he's going, and we love it, because training is the backbone behind everything we do. So really, when we talk about do you train, there's really no excuse for no one to not train, right? I mean, there's no excuse. We talked about all the online stuff that's available at firehouse.com, fireengineering.com, Firefighter Nation, the video streaming library. Again, give me a shout at my email if you want information on that.
Sims you share. I mean, all simple stuff you can do right at the kitchen table with a crew of 3, you know?
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. Sims you share. We in the past, we talked on our 4th Century show about Tommy Schiavino with the milk crates full of old locks and mechanisms. And it was snowing bejesus or whatever. You're at the kitchen table with the K tool, or with the keys opening. I mean, just, you know what? If you've got good bosses and you've got people into the job, I don't think training is a problem at all. What we need to ask those, I think, John, out there of those people is to spread that energy, right? Lead by example. Remember your circle of influence, and suck more of those people sitting on the fence, or some of the young guys that don't even know yet. These young guys and gals, it's okay to train. Boom, suck them into your circle, where they're doing that. Cap or John, hey, the Captain's real busy stuff. How about we go out and work on this, or show me that tool again? You know, I've seen it in your firehouses a bunch of times, and Louisville was legendary for it, with taking time to train their people. So you've got that. we talked about the hands-on and building props and you know, the videos are out there on how to watch, you know, people, they'll walk you through how to build your own props. All right. The training calendars, you know, your regular stuff, and making sure, folks, you record everything you do with your people. You got, if you don't record, it didn't happen. And I know you're doing it very innocently, but again, don't fabricate, just make shit up. But if you stop and you walk through buildings, you're talking building construction, or you do something extra, jot it down. You'll be shocked at the end of the year how many hours your people have, volunteer or career. Even the volley places, John. There's times, guys, I've been to volunteer firehouses. We end up doing something, you know, just talking after a class or whatever, and nobody like gave people hours for it. I'm like, God, we just did a whole nother hour or two or hour and a half on a hose load, and nobody recorded it for your own folks, you know. So make sure, guys and gals, you're recording this stuff for the people that work for you. Keep your requirements realistic. I know there's mandates, there's ISO requirements, NFPA guidelines, and so forth. But at the same time, make sure they're realistic so you can, you know, like we said before, when it came to fire apparatus, make sure it meets what your own community, your community needs. Make sure your requirements meet what your department can fulfill and what they can do, but don't use, you know, anything as an excuse for not training at all. And then, John, I'll finish with this. You know, make sure they're working with their state associations. You mentioned, I mean, New York State Chiefs with Sue, what an incredible resource, what an incredible lady. I love her. You know, in Texas, we've got, you know, the Texas Fire Chiefs. We've got the Fire Marshals Association. We've got the State Firemen's Association. We've got, I mean, TEECs. There's so many groups out there. Forget even the I-Chiefs and IFF or the National Volunteer Fire Council. There's so many associations out there, John, that you can work with that have information. Some even have grants that'll help you train, you know, provide you funding for it. So there's a lot of people out there that can help you either establish the requirements. We said this before. Folks, it's out there. The stuff's out there. The lesson plans, everything you need to have programs in your own department. You know, my buddy Jeff Bryant, John, just shared everything. I sent him an email. Jeff Bryant's the chief in Amboy, Illinois, folks. Amboy, A-M-B-O-Y, Illinois, Volunteer Fire Department, one of the role model fire departments for the United States and Canada. And John, had a guy email me. He's looking to kind of standardize the training in his volunteer department, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. And I just put him to Jeff, and Jeff, he sent him like 30 documents. He sent him everything from their probing manual to their yearly training calendars to the stuff he sent them everything. It's like, just change the names, you know, the names on each page to your own department and modify it. It's yours. So what I'm getting at is, here's another guy, Chief Jeff Bryant from Amboy, Illinois. There's more. There's a ton of Jeffs out there, right, that are willing to share their stuff. Are there not, John?
Absolutely, all over the place. I started out on Long Island. There's a great base of volunteer fire chiefs out there, and they're all over. I'm up in Orange County now. You're down in Texas. You've been in Idaho. You've been in, you know, Illinois. We've both been a bunch of places, and there's great people in the fire service everywhere. And those are the folks you want to emulate. Those are the folks that you want to hook onto and be like.
Wow. Hey, buddy, if they want to get a hold of you for a class or for some information, what's the best route? We always talk about this email, right? Sure.
Chief John Salka @gmail.com.
And I'm at chieflasky@gmail.com. And hopefully, this is another great conversation. God, we start off with talking about do you train, and we pretty much ran through everything from props to requirements to, and I know we probably could have done 8 hours on this and not covered everything, obviously. But I'll say this, buddy, to the people out there that have or are serving as training officers for your departments, thank you. Because John and I both know what it takes to do that. And it takes someone special that has a lot of heart and a lot of love for the job to really want to make sure your department's the best of the best, because this just ain't about delivering newspapers. You know, this is about keeping people alive in the firehouse and taking care of those people out there we said we're supposed to take care of. So that being said, you got anything, John, before we close things out?
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. So, hey, we always ask you at the end of these shows to please keep the men and women in your thoughts and prayers that are serving our armed forces. Keep our law enforcement family in your thoughts and prayers. And especially right now with everything going on with the coronavirus, a lot of challenges, a lot of people facing hardship, a lot of people facing terrible times, horrific times in their own families. please, we're a great country. We're going to come back. We're going to be kicking ass and taking names later on again, like we always do. We're going to rebound from this. The one thing I'll say to our fire service folks that are listening in, thank you. God bless you. You are the backbone behind everything's right. Everything that is right in our communities, and you stand that post even through times like this. So with that, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you joining us. Take care of yourself. God bless you.